People in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up today, you're already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to deliver the perfect example of what this platform intends to do every single time, and that is a dream pairing of two really smart yet very humble executives who are proven rock stars in their respective segments of the music business. I promise you'll leave today smarter and more inspired than you arrived. More on that in just a moment. Before we get started, let me take care of some business. Please, to the audience, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I place music executives in roles throughout the business. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections. So I invite you to take every advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones. And please ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the session. Also, please make sure that your chat is set to address speakers and attendees. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this free. Thanks to First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, Four Roses Bourbon, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Lightning 100, Tennessee Brew Works, Moo TV, Jive Printing, Project Music, and Cushmasters brand of CBD products. With that said, let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome my good friend, Andrew Kintz. Andrew is Executive Vice President of Music Industry Group and Private Client Services at First Horizon Bank here in Middle Tennessee. The Music Industry Group provides specialized financial services to the music industry companies nationally. First Horizon's Private Client Services Division serves high net worth families in Middle Tennessee with private banking, financial planning, wealth management, trust, and family office services. Since 1998, Andrew has served banks in various revenue production and management roles in commercial banking, private wealth management, and music industry banking. He received his undergraduate degree from W&L and an MBA from the University of Georgia. And for those of you who don't know him, he's one of the best hangs in the whole business. Welcome, Andrew. So glad to have you with us. And joining Andrew as today's featured guest is Golnar Khosrowshahi. Golnar is founder and CEO of Reservoir Media, an award-winning independent music company headquartered in New York City with operations in LA, Nashville, Toronto, London, and Abu Dhabi. Founded in 2007, Reservoir is the first US-based publicly traded independent music company and the first female-founded and led publicly traded music company in the US. Under her leadership, Reservoir has grown to own and administer over 130,000 copyrights, 36,000 master recordings with titles dating as far back as 1900. Golnar continues to lead the team in building a well-attended roster and an established catalog, earning her recognition as one of Billboard's most powerful female executives for 2017, 18, 19, and 20, and a Billboard Indie Power Player for 2017 and 18. Furthermore, Reservoir was awarded Publisher of the Year at the Music Business Worldwide's the A&R Awards in 2017 and 19, and was named Independent Publisher of the Year at the 2020 Music Week Awards. In addition to her role as CEO of Reservoir, Golnar serves as director of the board on the board of the NMPA based in Washington, D.C., and working to ensure fair compensation and property rights for songwriters and their representatives. She also sits on the NMPA Songs Foundation Board of Directors, an organization that raises funds to support career songwriters. Working alongside artist, director, and cellist Yo-Yo Ma, Golnar served as board chair of Silk Road, a nonprofit organization formed in 2000, and is now a director. In 2018, she was elected to board of directors for RBI, which is Restaurant Brands International, and in 2021, she was elected to the board of directors of Nomad Foods. She's a classically trained pianist through the Royal Academy of Music in London, England, and a Royal Conservatory of Music in Canada. She holds an MBA from Columbia University and in New York City, and an and a BA in poli-sci from Bryn Mawr College. Please welcome these two amazing rock stars to the smartest people in the room. Take it away, Andrew. Andrew, you're muted. Talk to us.
I can talk to you. Hi, Tom. Thank you for the introduction.
Well, I'm going to tap dance here for a minute while Andrew gets started. Seriously, what I didn't say in that intro, I'll just say right now. I am so thrilled to have you here, and you clearly are the smartest person in this room. So thank you for giving us some time today.
Thank you for inviting me. I have a little bit of imposter syndrome with the two of you in this room, in this Zoom. So I'm happy to be here.
Paging Dr. Kintz.
As my.
There you are.
I'm here. I'm sorry I lost my audio for a good chunk of your great introduction, Tom, but thank you for your words. And really grateful to be here, to be able to do this with Golnar. It's a, Golnar, I've been hearing about you since just after maybe 2010. I was just getting into music industry banking, and you were the gold standard, and Reservoir was the gold standard. And one of my great friends, Charles Johnson, is the one who began this calling relationship with you. And we started going out and trying to find relationships with companies that were slightly like Reservoir, because we knew that kind of strategy would be a company we could grow with and have a long relationship with. And so we're grateful to be a capital partner of yours. And I just can't thank you enough for being part of this interview.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, my primary goal today is really to learn about you, learn about who you are, and some outside of Reservoir, some outside of all the amazing things you've accomplished, to be the founder and CEO of a great independent music company that is now a publicly traded company. I think Wall Street was so excited to see you guys go public through that SPAC this summer, and we'll get into that. But I really want to start with you. I want to start with who you are as an individual, as a great leader, and kind of how you got there. So I'm going to be pre 2007 for a bit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I think that the thing that I'd love to understand, because you had a quotation that was near and dear to my heart and near and dear to many music bankers' hearts, business managers' hearts, people that are both purely in the music industry, but also are in the finance industry. And you said you wanted to marry your personal passion for music with the complexities of the business of music. And I want to hear about that personal passion for music a bit first. So tell us about that. You moved from Iran to Vancouver, Canada in 1981. Do you have passions for music then? Can you remember childhood passion for music?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was any more passionate than other kids at my age. I started playing piano probably when I was 4 or 5 years old. And that was in Iran. I continued in London, and the English program, conservatory program, is a rather strict and methodical music education program. And I went through that program. You sit exams every year. You prepare a repertoire of music that you perform in a very large, intimidating room in front of a very large, intimidating panel. You take oral exams, you study history, you study theory, and that's the rigor of the program that I went through. So yes, I was passionate about it. I think more than being passionate about it, I was highly educated about it. And what I mean by that is that there are times that I absolutely hated it. So just given the rigor and the demands of the program. I don't, in parallel with that music education, was any other normal childhood, listening to music the same way other kids were. And so I wouldn't say I was more passionate. I would say I was just extraordinarily educated about music, classical music, classical piano, the teaching of it, the learning of it at a rather young age.
Wow. When was the last time you played the piano?
I still have the piano from my childhood. The reason I have it is because it is an extended upright Yamaha that at some point was hard to find, or maybe they're easier to find now. And the keys are very hard. So it's really quite good for training, because you practice on that piano and then you go and play on any other piano, and it's a walk in the park. So I don't play seriously now, but it's there.
That's very cool. And then was there ever a live music experience from your childhood, teenage years, even college years that you can recall that is memorable?
I mean, I think if I were, in some kind of a therapy, then those are the experiences I would recall. So the only experiences there was the actual performances during these exams that I'm talking about.
Wow.
And they were extraordinarily stressful. As you got on in the levels, it was obviously a lot longer given the repertoire that you had to actually perform, which you spent about a year learning.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the extent, in addition to recitals here and there, but nothing that anybody paid any money to to see or listen to.
Is there a connection? I mean, so one of the words I think of when I think about Reservoir is discipline. You have a disciplined approach, especially to any kind of acquisition. Anytime that you are acquiring a music copyright, it is a lot of work before you ever, quote unquote, touch the keys. Is there a similarity there? Is that something you maybe learned from being classically trained as a pianist?
I think so. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you what came first in that. Was it the piano that sort of generated that discipline, or was it just the work ethic with which my brother and I were raised? Maybe that's where the discipline started. So a little bit of a chicken and egg. I will say that we have an incredible team here, and Rella Farg and I started working together in 2008. Maybe you are hitting on something in that we have this incredible team, a lot of whom are trained as musicians and educated in music, and perhaps that idea of learning through practice and rote learning has created this discipline. So maybe it's a common theme amongst many musicians, because it's certainly one that many people on the team here have brought to the table.
Wow. Well, shifting on, I mean, as it's still pre-2007, I wanted to hear also a little bit about who was influencing you then, sort of who was giving you your first opportunities as you're coming into the business world for the first time, still before Reservoir, who those people are. I think it's fun to talk about the folks who really helped us early in our careers.
So my very first, most glamorous job after college was as a receptionist in an advertising agency about 3 blocks up from here where I am right now. And it was exactly where I wanted to be. It was the dream job. The advertising agencies, or at least this one in those days, was run very much like the talent agencies. The men went to the mailroom, the women went to answer telephones. And if you made it past that, then you got a real job. I was told I would needed to sit in that job for a year before an opportunity would come my way. The funny anecdote of that was that at the time, my friends had gone to get bank jobs, consulting jobs, etc. And one day one of them called me and said, it's very strange that every time I call you, I hear the dinging of the elevator. Are you a receptionist? So yes, I was proudly a receptionist. I stayed in that job for about a month or two. I got very, very lucky. And an opportunity presented itself and I was able to move on. And I had two mentors in that role. One was the founder of the company, and the other was the person who became my boss. And it was really admirable, the leadership with which they led this organization at the time that they did, where they were completely blind to age, gender, experience. And so I got an incredibly speedy education at a very young age with significant demand. I mean, we were working easily a 20-hour day every day. And I owe a lot to the sense of urgency that I learned in that role, the importance of client service in a client service business, the importance of risk taking, of creativity. I took away a lot from that role. I'm still very friendly with both of those people. I see them. I tell them I owe them a lot all the time. So it's been one of those wonderful business relationships of my career.
Thank you. And I do see some questions coming in from the chat via Tom to my phone. We will get to those questions. I'm headed that way, just for those of you who are waiting for answers to your questions, because I want to get into Reservoir, and it looks like the questions are going that direction, Golnar. And so shifting there, I mean, it's 2007, and I have to say, I was joining the music industry and music finance in 2009, and it was not pretty. At the time, we were very, as a lender, we wouldn't lend on master recordings. Just the revenues from the record labels were continuing their long decline. Music was kind of becoming free. There were a lot of people that thought music should be free, which is just sacrilege when I say that. But honestly, it was a hard time. And then you say, you know what? I am going to found and start a music publishing company. Because I want to know about your thought process for why were you inspired to do that?
First of all, there's a book called How Music Got Free. And it's by an author named Stephen Witt, and it's an excellent recap of how music got free over the course of a 25 to 30 year period. So highly recommend. I could sit here and tell you I had this incredible foresight that we were going to be here where we are today, celebrating the growth and what people are now calling alternative revenues and all of these things. We didn't. I started doing due diligence on how people were creating and monetizing intellectual property sometime around 2006. That due diligence was really motivated by the business model of one of our sister companies, which specializes in the acquisition of royalty streams in pharmaceutical drugs and devices. And however counterintuitive it might seem, inventors and songwriters have a lot in common. And that's really where it began. Obviously, I had this passion for music. I worked a lot in buy-side music licensing, and I sort of brought all of that together. We certainly didn't have the foresight that things were going to settle down, a distribution method was going to sort of become standardized, that the market was going to then start growing significantly. But we did have an understanding that an interesting business could be built upon long-term ownership of intellectual property. And we didn't start the business with an exit in mind. We didn't start the business that was driven by the life of a fund with a mandated exit. We built the business being an operating company, creating enterprise value for a very long term. And so we don't have a lot of the constraints on our business that others do, because we are not solving for an exit that is breathing down our neck.
Oh yeah. Yeah, to me, in this day and age where there are so many funds that are being formed to own music and approach the banks to create senior debt to acquire that music, we love the long-term strategy. And it's also, in a lot of ways, we think about it as, the stewardship of music for the long term is something really important to us as we evaluate risk. And that is so good to hear. And to not have a 5-year time horizon to make sure the investors can get paid. That's music to our ears. No pun intended. So those early months and years, is it should we be picturing Silicon Valley and the and the 2 folding chairs and the fold-up table? I mean, what can you just describe those very early months and years?
Yes. We had a 1-room office just up the street, also from where I am now. There were 2 of us, then there were 3 of us. Our conference room didn't have walls because we didn't want to spend the money to duct the air conditioning into the conference room. Our floors were not finished, and so we painted them to finish them. And we stayed in that office and grew for several years. We bought all of our furniture from our neighbors for $500 because they closed their business. The business was always approached and built with a merchant mentality. And we've never run the business with this idea that, we'll make money in a few years. We've ran a business where we've had to perform every year. So obviously we've always been very cost conscious, overhead conscious. And it was I won't tell you it was really exciting and entrepreneurial and had a lot of Silicon Valley energy. It didn't. It was terrifying. And every year it was just worse and worse news coming out of, insofar as decay went, et cetera. I mean, we were in business probably 4 or 5 years until what was being referred to as this inflection point happened, where the decline in physical sales was finally being outpaced by the growth in digital sales. So it was not easy. It was definitely not easy.
You said 2 or 3, and I have to ask, as somebody who is absolutely dependent on my team, I love my teams. Tell me about your team. Tell me about those individuals then, and I mean, even if you want to fast forward into current day, because I think that the people that you bring with you as a leader and founder, that is so important. Could you tell us a little bit about your team? And the process of
I could. I mean, I don't really want to tell Tom about how great they are, but I will. Yeah, I see that, Tom. It's people ask all the time, what's sort of the highlight of what we've done. The highlight of what we've done is that we have built a team that over the past 14 years has had 0 management level turnover. Wow. And that is probably one of the things that I am most proud of, because I think that is the probably the biggest indicator of who you are as a leader. Do people want to keep working with you? That, you know, if the answer is no, then you can see that in your turnover numbers. So as I said, Rel joined us in May of 2008, and we have had an excellent business partnership since then. He has been in charge of every aspect of this business. Initially, he came on board to set up the administration systems, collection systems, et cetera, but has obviously grown into a role significantly beyond that. A few years later, we acquired Reverb in the UK, and hand in hand with Reverb, that really marked the beginning of an incredible relationship with Annette Barrett, who you know, we continue to work with today. So much education and experience and connection has come about through that, and obviously we're very grateful. I think I'm jumping around a bit, but in June of 2019, we went into business with Chrysalis Records. Jeremy Lascelles and Robin Miller run that business, and again, just one of the most incredible experiences, getting to know them, working with them, learning from them and their iterations of Chrysalis over the years. There are, you know, many to name. Our entire deal team I'm on the phone with every morning at 9:30, and that's a great group. Faith Newman joined us in 2010 and headed up creative, and you know, continues to break barriers and sign people to the roster and bring catalogs in that we have to pinch ourselves about. John Osier, obviously, you know, down in Nashville, which was it was late for us to get into Nashville when we did, but because we hadn't met the right person, and then we met John under a completely different in a completely different context, and we knew this was our guy. So, you know, sort of riding his coattails and entering that market has been great for the company, has added just incredible talent to the roster. And John and his team in Nashville have really ramped things up for us there in a very short amount of time. Scott Cresto runs our sync licensing and marketing group. He's based in Los Angeles. We've been working together, I don't know, I want to say at least 7 or 8 years now. So he's expanded his team to now about 10 people from London, New York, and LA. And I think it's a combination of things. I've been extraordinarily lucky to just come across great people. And we have run a business where our people are empowered, where we are decentralized, and the growth has materialized insofar as how we have wanted to grow the business. And these things have just all come together for us.
Wow. Well, it was amazing. And it's so spread. I remember our last conversation, we were talking about, you know, New York, Los Angeles, Toronto, London, Nashville, Abu Dhabi. I mean, it's spreading across the world. It's amazing to lead and manage a team that is that tight knit, that cohesive, and being able to deliver incredible results. And so kudos to you. I'm going to go to the first question here. So we're going to go a little bit outside from the team, and it seems to be a burning question. This is maybe a conglomeration of a few questions, because it has to do with your competitive advantage, or what makes you different. The question from the chat says, it's from Marty Simon, and it says, what would you say distinguishes Reservoir from, and it names Primary Wave, Hypnosis, Roundhill, some others, sort of what is the secret sauce that makes the seller, the artist, the publisher, the catalog owner want to go with Reservoir when they have multiple options? So I'm sure it's different every single deal, but is there a common theme?
I don't know if there's a common theme. We are able to execute on our strategy because of our reputation. I think we have established ourselves as having a reputation and of being a caretaker of legacy assets. We bring to the table a creative team that's led by Donna Kassane in Los Angeles that really is second to none. And that has value, especially when we are looking at transactions that aren't just passive interests. I think that what we do on the value enhancement side is attractive if you're not just looking at getting the big check today. If you're looking at realizing value in the immediate future and increasing the terminal value, people can see, you know, what we do in advocacy, in sync licensing, in digital licensing. In the end, everybody wins from that work. And we do a lot of relationship-based deals, and that's worked for us. Not every deal is for us, and we are not for every seller. And we're well aware of that. So we've been very focused insofar as what we're going after, because that clicking between seller and buyer is important. We are dealing with creative people who are selling their creative body of work. And if you don't recognize that as a buyer, I think you're hard pressed to really understand this business.
Thank you. That's great answer. The thinking about all these these transactions, these the times when you have been able to acquire amazing catalogs of music, as well as maybe sometimes when it didn't quite happen. Wondered if you could remember a particular transaction that you were thrilled about, not at the expense of any of the others. Just does something come across your mind where you think, I was absolutely thrilled that we got that deal?
I mean, we're thrilled about every deal. And I would tell you how thrilled we are doesn't necessarily correlate to how big it is. In its moment, every deal has been a turning point. Reverb gave us a footprint in the UK. FS Media was, at the time, our largest transaction. It brought in John Denver, it brought in Sheryl Crow, Evanescence, Billy Strayhorn. I mean, caliber of artists and music that we just didn't have at the company. Hans Zimmer brought in a completely new kind of interest in music assets. So each and every one of those was and continues to be very exciting for us. I think you asked about the ones that got away.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that too. Do you think about the ones that got away? Or
I mean, they all got away. If you're sitting and operating in today's marketplace, you know, you're sitting there thinking about looking at valuations where what you were saying was, okay, this is too expensive. Well, no valuation that we were looking at in 2012 or earlier, or even I would say 2015, 16 or earlier, was too expensive based on what's happened in the marketplace today. So I don't think there's a single deal that has gotten away from us. And I would more say that, you know, with hindsight, we should have done every transaction that came across the table. But the one thing I would add is that this is pretty representative. In fiscal 20, we looked at 204 deals. We went into exclusivity on 45 of those, and we closed 43.
Well,
so the two and that's generally our hit rate. So the two that got away actually didn't get away. They didn't sell. You know, the sort of circumstances changed. That gives you an idea of how we are closing and what we're going after, and we're going after the things that we're interested
in. Yeah, well, you mentioned, you know, the state of affairs, what is happening right now. I mean, it is. I've never seen anything like it, especially during some economic turbulence, this is absolute boom time. For us that are in music finance, it's absolute boom time for anyone that is seeking to acquire music copyright and other sorts of entertainment content. But I want to focus on music copyright for a moment with the current state of the industry. There's so much capital flooding in the space, institutional investors. Today, Data Dispatch, $1.51 billion coming into the music industry from private equity alone. Securitizations, they're starting to pay off our senior debt. That's happening too much these days. I mean, so how has Reservoir pivoted? Because we're talking about 07, and those first 5 years, 7 years, nothing like it has been, particularly over the past 2 years. And what have you had to do to change where you have so many other buyers coming into this market? The valuations are they get a little bit staggering, and then when the headline deals, everybody scratches their head when they see some of those headline deals and the multiples. I mean, so to me, I'd love to hear how a company that is really disciplined, really well run, all of a sudden sees a marketplace that might not necessarily be rational. How are you pivoting to be able to face that market and still be a winner in that market, because you are?
Well, I think we're staying pretty true to our discipline. We have always been passionate about music, always been dispassionate about our investments. So we don't get wrapped up in a lot of things when we're looking at valuations and sort of what's next for us and decisions that we need to make. We have continued to be able to execute on our strategy to maintain that discipline. Obviously, we are not underwriting with the same assumptions that we were 10 years ago. Our assumptions have changed. These assets are worth more than they were 10 years ago. We recognize all of that. We've been able, my answer is a little bit similar to the answer of the question before, which is that we've been able to compete based on relationship. We've been able to continue to execute on that strategy. I think that there are a finite number of transactions that fall into that irrational category that you're talking about, because I think there are a finite number of artists and writers who are really in that group that can command a 30 times multiple. It's not everybody is a Neil Young, not everybody is a Bob Dylan. It's just that's a finite group. We're not necessarily going to win those deals. Those deals also create concentration issues for us as we look at the portfolio. So that's something that we would consider as well. And we're not really competing with these billion-dollar commitments on the $30 million deal, on the $10 million deal, because these large commitments are incentivized to obviously deploy capital not by doing $1 million deal here and there, but in significantly larger chunks. I think, again, there's a finite number of deals in that realm that are commanding a certain multiple, and that's not really our playground.
I got it. From one of my favorite people and smartest people in the room, Tom Truitt, is there one of these competitors where you admire their strategy and you see them in the marketplace and you see what they're doing, even though it might be a little different from what you're doing?
I think we admire all of our competitors for a variety of different reasons. They have over the years been able to do things that we haven't been able to do, and we certainly recognize that, and we're not sort of precious about any of that. I think that I look at this group of independents that has survived a number of things, and I would say that together this group is behind what has generated institutional interest in this segment. It has helped generalist investors and business people understand the value of the assets. You look at the companies that are fund-based and have gone out and put together whole groups of limited partners to come and invest in their businesses. Well, they're very responsible for the education that has occurred in the marketplace and the interest that's going on now. I admire, all of that. I think that we've all learned from one another over the years, and thankfully we operate in a creative field where the need for the independent is always there. Artists need independence, artists need boutiques, they need high touch, client service driven businesses. And so we have that going for us insofar as continuing to exist.
That's great. My favorite quotation from you was from a few years back, was, and I think that if you are someone that is interested in selling your catalog to Reservoir, it is our privilege and our responsibility to maintain value and enhance the value of a great song. And to me, it just boils down on the music publishing side, just the fact, back to that word stewardship. It is really important work. And I'm sure that comforts those in the marketplace that are willing to partner with you creatively. So I kind of want to move toward the future a little bit now. And another quotation, which is very, very recent, just from 2 weeks ago. It was that you will, meaning Reservoir, will further redefine its business as the business of listenership. And to give everyone some context, this came out at the same, I guess, in response to Reservoir's investment in Audio Up, which is podcast, different kind of content than down the middle music publishing and master recordings. And so would love to hear more about this shift into the business of listenership.
I mean, we're not abandoning what we do. Our core business will continue. We will continue to build the catalog. We will continue to scale the business, focus on accretive transactions, on the publishing side, on the recorded side. But we are also not blind to what is ahead. And I do think, and I do speak a lot about listenership. I acknowledge that, yes, we are absolutely in the music business, but that more broadly, we are in the business of listenership. And what that means is that we have to think about what people are listening to actively, passively, how we continue to have exposure to content that really occupies share of ears. In the immediate term, we see a shift where perhaps podcasts will eat away at time spent listening to music. The economics changes. That changes, what the future of our business is. That was specifically the motivation behind the Audio Up investment. Together with that, we have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for what Jared and his team and the business they are building. And it's an acknowledgement that there is diversity in what people are listening to, and we want to be ahead of that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you. So looking now, sort of forward, long-term strategy. You're not just looking to enter and exit in 5 years. The company has been here since 2007. What do you see? What do you see in the next few years, and then in the longer run for a music and media company? Something out there on the out on the horizon. Let's maybe just do that first, maybe the intermediate term, next couple of years, and then further into the future.
Sure. I think that I think this growth will continue. We are certainly very invested in Spec and his team at Pop Arabia and their initiatives in the emerging markets. That's a collaborative relationship that began many years ago. We've had the good fortune of getting to know Spec for a long time. And I think there's no one that we would rather be in business with in the Middle East than with him. And so he's at the head of Pop Arabia, and we are very interested in continuing to help him grow that business. They launched ESMA not too long ago in the region, and I think that is going to be an immediate development where you have the growth of Pop Arabia converging with the growth in the emerging markets. So we're super excited about that. We look at developments on subscription growth, on listening hours per week and the growth that's happening there. Online gaming, we know, is going to be a significant contributor now to sort of these alternative revenue channels. We look at in-home fitness, something that didn't exist on our line items 18 months ago. And here we are now. The convergence of a Peloton settlement and a global pandemic has just driven the developments there. And we look at Wi-Fi enabled cars rolling off manufacturing lines in the next 5 years. We look at the smart voice activated devices being a $15.6 billion industry by 2025. All of this gets to a very, very dumbed down but resounding thesis that there will continue to be more people listening to more music more often and in more places. And that is what we are building the business towards, to take advantage of that.
That's great. Taking advantage of it, I've got to talk about it. The SPAC. You're a publicly traded company through a SPAC, which has been around for a while, but just became a tool that is more commonly used over the past couple of years. So does being publicly traded, does that position you for all this growth in a different new way? Just want to hear maybe about the strategy behind becoming public and how that relates to the company's plans for growth.
Sure. I mean, we made a decision to pursue a SPAC just over a year ago. It was a logical next step for the company to pursue a public listing. This road that we went down had us benefiting from speed to market, from being the first independent to be publicly traded in the US, to now having a currency, which certainly does make us more competitive insofar as how we structure deals. And tough to predict if it's tough to predict, what would have happened had we not gone down this road. But we had a certain mandate, and that was the vehicle that was the best path forward for us. We weren't big enough to go down a traditional IPO route, and we've always run this business rather institutionally. So the transition from private to public hasn't really been some massive revamp for us. I think we are very well positioned to take advantage of the growth that we would like to. Obviously, all eyes are on music, and hopefully I've taken the transition well, and I'm behaving as I'm supposed to and saying the things I'm supposed to as a public company CEO. It was the next logical step for us, and we fully recognize the things that have happened in the market, the volatility in the market, changes in the SPAC market, et cetera. But we are here now. I'm glad it's behind me. It was certainly a long road, and excited to see what it does bring for us. But it's already brought a lot of new and interesting developments.
Fantastic. Thank you. I have another question from the field, actually from a great friend and another publishing executive, Tim Whipperman. He says a significant portion of our income, meaning publishers' income, comes from terrestrial radio. Do you see a degradation in income from terrestrial radio, given the changes in consumption patterns to streaming, especially considering streaming income for writers, publishers is under attack? Good question, Tim.
So, I mean, I don't have the proper data in front of me to answer the question the way that I would like to. I think that it's a long-term inevitable event, but from what we are seeing today, it's not as, declines coming from that is not as immediate as one would have thought. It's certainly something that we keep our eyes on. We certainly, we've heard interesting views in this, and we've heard interesting views from people who are rather entrenched in the industry, you know, saying that they don't actually see the end of terrestrial radio and the decline there. So we've taken the, you know, those data points in consideration as well. Again, I don't have the data in front of me to answer the question properly, but what I will say is that a few years ago, we certainly expected far more significant impact from reduced listenership there than we've seen.
It looks like I've got a note from Tom. Are we entering that lightning round, Tom? Like, is it already that time? Semi that time. Well, so before I'm going to go into the lightning round, then, because I've got a lot of other things I want to ask you. I want to hear some things that are outside of Reservoir, things that really that you really care a lot about. There's some things out there publicly that we can see that you're involved in, but are there nonprofits or are there organizations where you're committing your time that you just spend your heart?
So I've been thinking a lot about this question, especially now that my children are in university and I have more time, I have more bandwidth. And I've come to and I have to make decisions about how I'm spending that time in sort of the philanthropic context. I get the most satisfaction when my worlds collide, when I can leverage relationships for a cause or a nonprofit to create opportunities that, you know, otherwise wouldn't have materialized. And years ago, Reservoir commissioned a Silk Road artist. Silk Road is a musical collective that Yo-Yo Ma founded some 20 years ago that I chaired while he was artistic director for about 10 years. So we commissioned this artist to rearrange Take the A Train from Billy Strayhorn's songbook, which we had Silk Road musicians premiering the piece in Toronto. It coincided with Toronto Film Festival premiere of Music of Strangers. And it was a whole bunch of worlds just colliding, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. Recently, I've been working pretty tirelessly with a group that is responsible for the partial evacuation of the Zora Orchestra and their families from Kabul. It's a group of female musicians, and that's been taking quite a bit of time, but again, a number of different parts of my life coming together for just philanthropy and community work. And so I'm looking at a lot of isolated projects that allow me to do that because I enjoy that the most.
Will you ask either of your children or encourage either of your children to enter the music industry?
I wouldn't encourage them or discourage them. I would, I encourage them to pursue what they're interested in and to do it at an extraordinarily high level. I'm pretty agnostic as to what that is.
Wow. Got it. All right, so I think we can go lightning round. We have 2:53. Tom, do we have a hard stop at 3? Golnar might, because you're the CEO of a publicly traded company. So
I do. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. I'll be very sensitive to time. So these are just fun questions from the lightning round, from the field. Do you remember the first show you saw that was not classical music? First live music, pop rock.
Yes.
Okay.
Supertramp.
Supertramp.
Oh, Supertramp. Brian Adams
In
was
Canada?
opening for Supertramp. BC Place
Okay.
Stadium in Vancouver, 1983.
Yes. First record bought with your own dollars, not a gift. You went and you bought it.
Probably something New Order.
New Order. Okay. Okay. When do you
Aging myself.
Oh, do you have a guilty pleasure artist? We're just like, oh yeah, I've got an extra 15 minutes. I'm just going to jam on this artist.
Ed Sheeran, all
Ed
the
Sheeran.
way.
Good. What is the next time you'll see some live music? When is the next time, and who might be?
Okay, so I went to Bruce Springsteen over the summer because that was actually live on Broadway.
That's awesome.
And that was incredible. Yo-Yo performed all 36 movements of the Bach cello suites uninterrupted at the Hollywood Bowl in September. I went to that. I'm going to go to David Byrne in a couple of weeks, and our writers and artists are getting back out there. So obviously we go to all of those. So it hasn't been a complete shutdown on that front. I've gone to whatever I can go to.
Denied yourself completely. That is fantastic.
Well, I've gone. If there were tickets, I was buying them.
Very cool. Well, I'm looking to see if there are any more questions from the field. One last, and we sort of you gave some personal folks who helped you, but do you have a mentor or idol, somebody that's in the public sphere, or did you as you were getting into running a company like this?
I mean, certainly they're not in the public sphere, but I would say that my parents probably satisfy that role more than any other. They have led by example. They have faced incredible adversity in their lives at very young ages, had to rebuild, restart, and have just set a fantastic standard for us. And so I would say they are the ultimate mentors for me.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. Final question from Shelley Katz. Have you ever played a sonata with Yo-Yo Ma?
I have not. I have been in the presence and touched Jackie Dupre's cello many times. I don't know how to play the cello, but he's very free with giving people the cello to touch and play with, much to the chagrin of maybe those who are responsible for that cello. But I have not formally ever done anything with him, put it that way.
Well, this has been delightful. Thank you for letting me be the person who gets to ask you these questions. Tom, thank you for letting me crash Who Knew as in your role as interviewer. Means a lot to me. Thank you both for that.
Thank you. It was really great to be here, and obviously we've got a business partnership, and that we are always very grateful for. And Tom, thank you so much for inviting me. And as I said at the beginning, imposter syndrome when you have a session that is titled "The Smartest Person in the Room" with the two of you in the room. So I really appreciate being included in this group.
Well, for the audience, let me say thank you to both of you for making time for this. The stories, the wisdom, the inspiration. Golnar, you crushed everything that I hoped you would. So thank you. It's no wonder you're so successful and that your company's thriving. And Andrew, always a pleasure to see you, hopefully soon in person. To the audience, thank you for your continued patronage here. Please get a shot and please be nice to each other. And we hope to see you out with some live music soon. With that, I'm going to sign off. Cheers, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.